time. And note that we do have a quorum. Note also the absence of Commissioner Perrier, who had a commitment to his work, probably be in a little late, but we do have a quorum and we will proceed. I'll lead us in an invocation and ask Commissioner Palmer if he would lead our Pledge of Allegiance. Pray with me if you desire. Almighty God, we recognize you today as our Almighty God and Guider. We pray. Be with us as we go through this meeting, conduct business in your eyes that will be in the best benefit, in the best interest of the people of Person County. We ask your blessings on our military, those that have protected us in the past and will continue to protect us in the future, to give us the freedom to assemble as we are here today. Be with our law enforcement, our emergency medical personnel, and those that go out and serve, put their lives on the line for each of us each and every day. Pray blessings on the people of North Carolina, the western part of our state, that are still suffering from the floods. You know their needs. Many of our people have responded and are serving there. We ask your blessings on them. Pray that their needs will be met. Again, we ask for your guidance. In your holy name we pray. Amen.
Those who wish to do the pledge, I ask you to stand, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. First on the agenda is discussion and adjustment, approval of the agenda as presented, but we need a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of closed session number 2 for attorney-client privilege to discuss matters related to the lawsuit Mainstream Earthworks versus Person County. Do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the agenda as presented. Chairman Powell.
We do have a motion on the floor. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Motion carried. Item number 1 on our agenda is a resolution supporting Operation Green Light for veterans. Brian Hart. Brian.
Good morning, Commissioners. How are you all doing today?
Great.
Good. So joining me here this morning are members of the Person County Veterans Council, and I will read the resolution on their behalf. Whereas the residents of Person County have the utmost respect, appreciation, and gratitude for all the men and women who have served selflessly served our country and our community in the U.S. Armed Forces, and believe these service members shall be granted specific recognition, and whereas the contributions and sacrifices made by those who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces have been vital in maintaining the freedoms and way of life enjoyed by our citizens, and Person County seeks to honor these individuals who have made countless sacrifices for freedom by placing themselves in harm's way for the good of all. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in various civic, religious, and community organizations, as well as through civil service and by volunteering at various community-based events. And whereas Person County recognizes the necessity and value of employing a dedicated full-time veteran service officer whose role includes aiding and advocating for local veterans by helping them navigate the complexities of veterans-specific benefits, resources, programs, and ensuring that they receive the benefits and assistance they deserve. And whereas members of the Person County Veterans Council assist Person County veterans by serving as a liaison with the community and coordinating services and activities that benefit and honor local veterans and their families, and solicit information and provide updates about activities honoring veterans in our community. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future. And whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of veterans of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life, and active military service members transitioning from military service are at high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And as of 2023, North Carolina ranks number 7 in total veteran population, with approximately 680,700 veterans residing in the state. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to participate in Operation Greenlight for veterans in 2024 by shining green lights throughout their communities to let local veterans know that they are seen, appreciated, and supported. And therefore be it resolved that having officially been designated a green light for Veterans County, Person County hereby declares November 1st through November 15th a time to salute and honor the service and sacrifices of our men and women in uniform. And therefore, be it further resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, the Person County Board of Commissioners will encourage its citizens and businesses to recognize the importance of honoring all those who have made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve our freedom by displaying green lights in a window of their place of business or residence from November 1st, 2024 through November 15th, 2024. Adopted this 21st day of October 2024 by the Person County Board of Commissioners. So I wish to thank you for allowing us to read and recognize our veterans and the many contributions that they make throughout the county. We have a number of veterans who are employed in the county in various capacities, and so this certainly will resonate with them and be appreciated by all.
Probably some comments, but first, let's have a motion to approve this resolution from the
So
board.
moved.
Have a motion on the floor to approve the resolution supporting Operation Green Light. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, none, motion carried. We do have a copy of this, and it does need the clerk's signature, and we'll pass along to you gentlemen here. And while that's going around the table, I would like to just say just a few words, and that won't be enough for what you guys have done and are doing in Person County for our veterans. We owe you great gratitude, again, beyond my words and comprehension, but your organization does an outstanding job. Look at the numbers with the population of Person County and the huge number of veterans throughout the state of North Carolina. Person County stands out. And in comparison to other counties, you do a bang-up job as far as promoting and supporting our veterans day in, day out, the events that you conduct throughout the year, and very, very commendable. And I certainly do appreciate it. Thank you. Any other comments from the board members?
Mr. Chair, I'd just like to say I have attended and participated in some of the events that y'all put on for this past year, and it was an honor to be there with you. And you know, we did a walk uptown. That was very. I enjoyed that. And y'all do a lot. I mean for Person County and all the events that you put on, you really promote the veterans, and I think that's commendable, and keep up the good work.
I'm going to take y'all back a few years. The land that this park is on was given by an elderly lady. I think she was a Bratcher lady, but I may be wrong. So the brick house was white. Now we have a beautiful park there, not an empty house. You guys have really made it spectacular there. I watched the rock walls go up. I watched the concrete be poured, and the memorials per war be put in place, the pedestals. I've been to the majority of the ceremonies we've had there since the inception of, and I'm just proud of all of y'all, and thank y'all for all that you do for Person County. Do we have an idea as to how many veterans the county serves
We have approximately 3,000 veterans in Person County based, and our population's around 39,000, so almost 10% of the population, give or take.
Okay, thank you. Again, thank you, and you got my full support. Being a veteran, I'm right behind you.
I also want to thank y'all for your hard work. Y'all have something just about every month. There's something about every month, and what y'all do for veterans in Person County is admirable. To go from where it was, say 10 years ago, to what you have right now, y'all should be very proud of yourself. It took a whole lot of hard work, a lot of dedication, a lot of hours, and you could tell that y'all care about each other, and that's a big thing for that organization, because the green light, I mean, that's what it's all about. So thank y'all for your hard work, and just keep on doing what you're doing, because you're on the right path.
Do thank you, and I don't, maybe it's not out of order, but could you answer a question for me? Somewhere relatively late 23, early 24, I made the suggestion there that once the Bricksmore building was acquired by the county, we would provide a space there for the veterans, as well as, and that's history, to make the position there of that director, Ms. Vicky, a full-time job. So we've done that with our budget, but where do we stand in getting them into that facility?
Sure. So we acquired the building about 2 weeks ago, and our initial plan is to address some of the immediate needs with HVAC and roofing, and from there take a comprehensive approach to evaluating the space to determine how to arrange it to best meet our needs for the next 20 years. And part of that will be identifying the best way to incorporate veteran services into that facility. So that is not an immediate placement in terms of space, but we do want to make sure that we take an approach that considers all the various options and what's in the best interest of providing services in that building.
Very good. Be patient with us. We're trying. Very good, but thank you guys again, and Mr. Hart, thank you.
Absolutely. So, if possible, we'll just grab a quick photo now that our Veteran Services Officer is here as well.
I do want to apologize. As soon as I got ready to come, a veteran walked in and needed something, so I took care of him and came on.
Doing your job, huh?
Yeah, that's right, no problem.
You guys, it's been a weekend.
Thank y'all.
Thank you.
May I address the council, the
Yes.
commission?
Be glad to hear
I just
from
want
you.
to say a couple of words. On behalf of the Personal Veterans Council, where I now serve as president, the American Legion, where I am first vice commander at Lester Blackwell Post 138, and the DAV, and all the 3,000 plus veterans in Person County, I want to thank you for your continued support of our activities and what we try to do for veterans. We can't do what we do without you. I want to thank you for supporting our BSO, making her full-time when that need became apparent and it was addressed. So again, I just want to thank you all for the support you give us.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
At this time on our agenda, we have a 10-minute period set aside for public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have speakers?
We do,
Okay.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman, we have one speaker.
One speaker, and we do have 10 minutes, so would you call the speaker forward, please?
All right, if Andrea Childers would please step forward. IT, can you please set the timer for 10 minutes?
Morning.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Morning.
My name is Andrea Childers. As of Thanksgiving Day, I will have lived in Person County for 32 years. Over the past years of coming to the Commissioner meeting, I have a reoccurring thought about the fable, The Emperor's New Clothes. Wikipedia summarizes it by saying, "The tale concerns an emperor who has an obsession with fancy new clothes and spends lavishly on them, at the expense of the state matters. One day, two con men visit the emperor's capital. Posing as weavers, they offer to supply him with a magnificent cloth and are invisible to all those who are deemed incompetent or stupid. The gullible emperor hires them, and they set up a loom and they pretend to go to work. A succession of officers, starting with the emperor's wisest and most competent minister, goes to check on progress, and then ending with the emperor himself. Each sees that the looms are empty, but pretends otherwise to avoid being thought a fool. Finally, the weavers report that the emperor's suit is finished. They mime dressing him, and he sets off in a procession before the whole city. The townfolk uncomfortably watch the procession and go along with pretenses, not wanting to appear inept or stupid, until a child blurts out, "The emperor is wearing nothing at all." The people then realize that everyone had been fooled. Although startled, the emperor continues the procession, walking more proudly than ever. You, commissioners, have no clothes. Modern-day charlatans have weaved you a beautiful cloak of tax dollars. But compared to the amount of money these ventures will cost the citizens of this county in the long run by way of infrastructure damages, environmental damages, and long-term medical bills, the overall cost will far outpace the tax revenue of these toxic industries you will bring to this county. I see you. Have a good day.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, that concludes informal comment period.
Thank you very much. Item number 2 on our agenda is discussion, adjustment, approval of the consent agenda as presented. Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Have a motion for approval. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. New business, item number 3, waiver of airport lease payments during runway rehabilitation project. Manager Kathy.
Good morning, Commissioners. We are in the midst of the rehabilitation work that is occurring out at Raleigh Regional Airport at Person County on the runway, connector taxiways, and apron. This is a 35-day project, and in order to complete this project, we did need to close the airport during that time frame. As you know, we have a tenant in our corporate hangar who leases the hangar at a rate of $20,300 per month. The tenant needed to relocate for a 2-month period and rent a hangar at another airport in order to continue their operations. They have requested that the county waive 2 months of lease payments. In addition, Red Mountain Aviation, Bill Tugas, operates our airport and also pays lease payments to the county of approximately $7,917 per month. The main impact to his operations is for the 1-month period of closure, the 35 days, where he will have less revenue coming in from fuel sales. And he has requested that we waive 1-month lease payment for him. So I'm bringing that forward for your consideration this morning. Again, that's waiving 2 months of lease payments for Jamestown Properties, as well as 1 month for Red Mountain Aviation. I'll be glad to answer any questions you may have.
So with Jamestown, that's 2 months. But that rehab really may not take quite that long.
No, they did have to actually move out before the project
yeah, okay.
started.
Gotcha.
And due to some delays in receiving supplies, they ended up, they originally planned to have moved out for 1 month time frame, but that turned into 2.
Mm-hmm. Through no fault of Jamestown Properties.
Right.
So, Commissioner comments? Anybody?
Well, they're not able to use it obviously at this time, and they have moved out, so I think it would, and it's not their fault, it's not their call, it was, we're renovating the airport, so, I see no reason why we we can't approve this recommendation.
Yeah, I agree there, both sides with, Mr. Toots as well. It's through no fault of theirs, so I think it's a good move to, show support for them there and
Absolutely.
continue on. Anybody else?
Totally agree.
Okay, any other questions or comments? Do we have a motion to waive the lease payment for the 2 months for Jamestown Properties in the amount of $40,600 and 1 month for Red Mountain Aviation in the amount of $7,917 during the runway rehabilitation project?
Mr. Chair, I'm gonna make the motion to consider waiving the lease of payments, $20,300 per month for 2 months for Jamestown Properties, and 1 month, $7,917 per month for Red Mountain Aviation.
Have a motion on the floor. Further comments or questions? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None, motion carried. Item number 4 on our agenda is strategic plan quarterly report. Manager Kathy.
Thank you. Back in February of 2024, the board adopted a strategic plan, and this was to be incorporated into our fiscal year 25 budget process. The strategic plan established major focus areas that are to span a 2 to 4 year period in view of our priorities, and established accompanying strategies to accomplish over the next 1 to 2 fiscal years. So this is our first quarterly report to you as a board, as well as to the public. We had an NPA intern who worked with us over the summer to create a template for reporting, and it incorporates the strategic focus areas and the goals that are assigned to specific departments through the strategic plan. It also pulled in the budget objectives that were associated with the various focus areas, and created an area to add new initiatives that may have arisen since the strategic plan was adopted in February, or even once the budget was adopted in July. So as you know, we're 3 months into this fiscal year 25 budget, and the majority of our goals and objectives are in progress since we are still early in the budget process. We do have some that have been completed. I'll highlight a few of those, and then some new initiatives that are also highlighted in the quarterly report. I do want to note that we approached creating this report through a shared Excel spreadsheet, and I did note once we had published the agenda packet that in the process of downloading that shared spreadsheet, converting it into a desktop version, and then putting it into a PDF, it did drop some of the comments, and it looked like it repeated some where it pulled them out of other cells. So I apologize for not noticing that before the PDF was placed in the packet, but we will get that cleaned up in the process of doing the second quarterly report after December, so that we'll be consistent throughout and make sure that tool is functioning the way we need it to for reporting purposes. So just to highlight a few of the goals that have been completed so far this year, the administration department implemented the Next Request, public records request platform, and revised our policy. So that's now available for public and staff use on the county website. At the airport, we have refurbished and re-logoed the exterior of the airport water tank, and there was a picture included in the report for you to see that work. We issued the 2024 limited obligation bonds and purchased the Carolina Pride Car Wash building for Piedmont Community College and the Human Services building. DSS hired 2 new staff development specialists to provide training for Medicaid staff. And Soil and Water Conservation Department amended the farmland preservation ordinance to include the establishment of a conservation easement program, which will further protect working farmland and preserve our rural identity. As far as initiatives that are still making progress, I did want to highlight the goal established for environmental health of maintaining on-site wastewater site evaluation processing times at 4 weeks, and the current processing time is averaging 4 weeks. Complete the merger and expansion and move of Person Industries from Madison Boulevard to the recycling center, and the construction timeline is on schedule for that one. HR is working on revising our performance evaluation and merit system over the course of this budget year, and they've conducted meetings with department heads for feedback and are currently drafting a new performance evaluation tool for review. As far as some of the new initiatives that are highlighted in the quarterly report, the administration department is focusing on providing additional support for our volunteer boards and committees. We have scheduled a meeting with departmental liaisons for next month, where we will review with them expectations as far as providing support for boards and committees, receive their feedback on how things are going, and move forward with conducting a volunteer orientation early in the year that pulls in some of that feedback and helps to create some consistency amongst the boards and committees. We have had some conversations internally about affordable housing. That seems to be coming up more and more in meetings that I've attended, which focus on different issues within the community and needs. Most recently last week during the Rural Center's listening session. So staff have participated in a webinar with Carolina Cross 100, which is a UNC program, and they are taking applications for community consortiums, which may include the county, the city, community college, builders, bankers, and others within the community to apply to receive support to look at affordable housing within the county. So I have penciled that in as something that we're looking at, something that the board can provide further feedback as far as the involvement of staff in that initiative. But that is one possible approach for looking at affordable housing options within the county. Emergency Services is working on restructuring and reorganizing the local emergency planning committee to ensure federal compliance and better assist Tier 2 facilities to meet their reporting requirements. You'll hear more about that at our next board meeting in November. GIS is working with Parks and Rec to build an asset management and work order system for them, and that may be a 1 to 2 year project. But that's just to give you kind of a high-level view of some of the initiatives that have been completed, some that are still in progress, some new initiatives that have come up for consideration. And I look forward to having this conversation with y'all on a quarterly basis, working with departments to check in and review our progress and make sure that we're on track with the strategic plan. And welcome any questions that you have today or anything that you'd like for me to follow up on for you.
What's this Carolina Cross org? What is there?
The what? Oh, the Carolina Across 100. That is an initiative through the UNC School of Government. They are currently taking applications from partnerships, so community partnerships within a county that would like to look specifically at their county and look at housing challenges that are faced within their community, evaluate those, and determine some strategies for how to meet those needs. That is an application process, and they will select certain groups to participate. They will not be able to invite everyone into the cohort, but it is a process over 18 months to work together to look at those issues within the community and attend training and develop strategies amongst the partners on how to work together.
Could you give me a printout on that, please?
I will. I'll send an email follow-up
Okay.
with more
That'd
details.
work.
Yes.
Manager Kathy.
Yes.
Going back to I'm looking at your, page 34, but,
Okay.
where it says 3.1, reduce the time it takes to issue environmental health, zoning, and building permits. I think you said we are at 4 weeks now, is that what you're telling?
For environmental health, yes, they're the first part of the process.
But it's 4 weeks, right?
Yes,
Okay.
and that has been our goal.
How are things going since we've lost Chris with our
Right.
zoning and planning? How are things going with that department right now? How are we progressing as far as bringing someone in? And what is the staffing situation with that right now, if you can tell me?
Sure. So we have our planning technician, who has been with the department for about a year. We have a planner who joined the staff about a week before Chris left. So we have had a vacancy in the planning director position for the past 2 weeks. So the two remaining planning staff have been working together to accept applications, review those, issues permits and approvals. As we have done in the past, there has been a learning curve because for our planning technician's position, she is doing some new things in the absence of other staff. And our planner is an experienced planner, but has to learn our ordinances and our way of doing things. So there is going to be naturally a bit of a slower process within planning and zoning right now, but they are continuing to move things along.
And we have a secretary, is that well? Or no, is that do we have a secretary in that department?
We have a planning technician who does staff the front counter.
Okay, so
So
that's the planning
she's the
technician we're
customer
talking about.
service face and first point of contact within the department. So she's at the front desk. We also have the contract code enforcement officer who does come one time per week on Wednesdays to continue investigating complaints related to code violations and follow up on previous investigations. We
I-
can,
I understand the learning curve you talked about, but I know in the past week, I've had people come to me with issues, they were concerns with the zoning and planning, and hopefully with the new person we brought on, that we can get them up to speed so that our builders will be happy with the timing and with some of the requests that they've asked for. So, but anyway.
sure. And I did have one person come to me last week with a concern, and I'm glad to talk with anyone who does have a concern and help work through whatever the issue may be. I have been going over and meeting with staff each day to check in and see what's coming through and what they might need additional support with. Also, the supervisors within the development services building are offering their support to the staff as well. So we do want to continue providing a high level of customer service and moving things through the process as quickly as we can and as accurately and as thoroughly as we can with those two staff members.
And your planning director, as far as timeline on trying, that's being advertised now, that
We-
position?
We conducted interviews last week, so we have a tentative start date of November 18th if everything remains on track.
Okay, good.
That can be a moving timeline based on background checking processes and things that could change between now and then. But that is our tentative start date. So we hope that will work out. November 18th.
November 18th.
Anyone else? I appreciate the report. I think it's good that we sort of look at this on a more periodic rather than a one-year basis. It's always good to not only set goals and objectives, but to take a look at what you're really doing and what's happening. And the 4-week period there for environmental, those of you who've been around a while know that that was one of my major concerns coming on this board several years ago, because at that point in time, we were looking at 12, 14 weeks out to get approval for some of the environmental issues and planning and zoning. So we have gotten to this point, and we're in an unfortunate position right now, but to hear that we're only 4 weeks out is very commendable to the staff, as well as support from the manager as well. We can very easily see that these two items are lifeblood to not only new business and industry, but the growth and expansion within those businesses, as well as the private sector as well, with homes and things of that nature. So I think that's very commendable, and I'd like for that 4-week period to be a target for them as they continue, and appreciate all that's going on there. I do, again, commend the board for going with the bonds that we're engaged in as far as our budget and our future plans, and the way that it's supporting our growth and in education in particular. It's good that we're doing what we're doing, and the new chat building is an example of that. And our support of Person County Schools as well. So we've done a good job getting some financial support there. And we do support lifelong learning. That was one of your one of the highlights there. Quality of life. I think we've done a good job with that. The administrative end is long. You've got a lot there to do. The airport, we've done a good job with that, and continue to. Good things going on and around the airport. All that's all well and good too. And you mentioned various committees. Historically, I think this board does get applications for committee assignments, and sometimes I'm disappointed that we don't have applications enough for volunteers. And I know they're volunteers. They volunteer their time, and I know what volunteerism is and what it means. Often we have a committee opening and we only have one applicant, and that puts this board in sometimes sort of a bad position. When you don't have an option and you don't have a real choice, then we go ahead and make that appointment. And I don't know how it would work, but sometimes I wonder if that is the case, that we shouldn't delay that until we get at least two, something for the board to consider. Again, it puts any board here, regardless of who we are today or tomorrow, in a bad position, and where it doesn't give us a choice, but that's personal opinion. The finance department there has done a commendable job with the departure of our long-term finance officer, and thank you for what you're doing there, and that's, again, is very commendable. So, overall, I'm grateful for you bringing this up and having it on the agenda today, and discuss, and hopefully from this, all the board members will look into that, look into the future, and just, again, keep tabs on what we're doing. Any other board member comments or questions? Hearing none. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Appreciate it. Item number 5 on the agenda is Human Services Board Orientation, CCR Consultants. So we have those in our presence. We're honored to have them here today, and you guys can come forward. Mr. Hart,
Yeah,
Thank
so
you.
I'll just do a very brief introduction. You are obviously familiar with our consultants from CCR. Today with us, we have Sherry Bradsher and Ravella Nesbitt. Today's orientation will be a continuation of an orientation that you all began back in April, and today she will focus primarily on adult services. So with that being said, I will invite Ms. Sherry Bradsher up to lead you on through that process. Thank you.
Good morning.
Morning.
Good morning. Let's see, does somebody help me get started?
Can we instruct IT to please load the PowerPoint?
Perfect, and there it is. And as we get started, we'll preface with a little bit of background on the adult services area. When we first came together and did our very first orientation together, we talked about duties and responsibilities of acting as the Social Services Board. And one of those duties is advocacy and understanding the needs of the community. And so I thought, before I get started on the presentation, the very last slide, as with all the previous presentation, gives you a list of additional resources that you can refer to learn more than what we're just doing in the overall orientation of the programs and services offered through social services. But in that list is something called the aging profiles, and what that does for you is give you context about the aging demographics in North Carolina, not just for the state, but for each individual county. And so I thought I would share some of those demographics with you before I talk about services, because I do believe this is an opportunity for you all, both as commissioners and as an acting social services board, moving forward. The current aging profile looks at the year 2022 and carries forward to 2042, a 20-year span, to say, what will the demographics in North Carolina look like moving forward? And it looks at it in terms of population change. And for Person County, the 0 to 17 population will change roughly growth by about 6%. The 60-plus population will grow about 4%. The 65-plus population will grow about 13% projected, and the 85-plus population will grow about 85% for Person County, 85%. Pretty significant. Now, the numbers get smaller as the age gets older, right? So you expect the percentage to get larger, but that's still significant growth. About 11% of those over the age of 60 will be living in poverty below 100%. About 25 will be living about 200% below poverty. About 15% will be veterans. About 31% will be living alone. That is higher than the average in North Carolina expected in the year 2042. And about 40% of those over the age of 60 will have some form or some disability that they will be living with, as well as being older. So think about those statistics, think about that data as we go through the services, because these are services that you probably will see more of as we get closer and to 2042, as Person County changes, and you'll see some opportunities, and I'll talk about some opportunities in these services where you might, through your advocacy role, want to see more of, as your population perhaps will demand more of. So let's talk about some of that. I gotta remember how to use the clicker.
There we go.
There we go. Perfect. So when we talk about adult services, there's a couple of key words that I just want to point out. I'm not going to read to you, but I want to highlight the word independence, dignity, community-based, and a system of supports. You're going to see that as themes no matter what service I talk about when we're talking about services to adults and services to adults with disabilities, whether they're older. And so there's a philosophy that's built into all these services and programs when we talk about older adults and how we serve them. We want to serve them in a way that allows them to maintain as much independence as is possible so that they have the freedom to make as many choices and live as independently as is possible, and protecting their well-being and allowing them to do so safely. We also want them to live in their community for as long as is possible, because that's what most people want to do. So you'll see a theme with these services that it's all about preserving the opportunity for individuals to stay home as long as it is safe to do so, if that is what the individual so desires. So you'll see that philosophy in all of these programs that we're talking about. I may just have a little bit of a weak battery here, so I am clicking. So I've grouped these services into 3 categories so that you can think about it in terms of some of the services that are offered in the adult services program areas are about economic supports. It's about getting resources to the individual so that they can use those resources to do just what we just said, to live independently and to be maintained at home for as long as possible. Some of the services that we're going to talk about are about safety and protection. And some of the services that we're going to talk about are more social work-based services where actually social workers are doing some case management type services to allow people to stay at home and or live independently for as long as possible. So let's talk first about some of the economic support programs. One of the very first economic support programs that I'll share with you is an eligibility program. And this is a program that allows individuals to come into the social services agency and apply for assistance so that a person can reside in an assisted living facility. An assisted living facility is not a nursing home. It's a family care home, a group home, or an adult care home. And it is a step down from a nursing facility because you have more independence when you live there. And you're usually there because you need some help with your daily living activities. You need help bathing, you need help preparing meals, you need help, and you can't be maintained at home or have no one to assist you or support you at home because the level of care that you need is more than what someone can provide for you in your home. And so applying for assistance at a county department of social services is where you would go in order to receive these services. Also, when you receive special assistance, you're also eligible for Medicaid, so you get your insurance at the same time. The General Assembly decided quite a few years ago that if RAP support services could be provided at the same level that a special assistance payment could be made to either a group home or an assisted living, that those resources could be made available to families to put RAP supports into a home to allow someone to be maintained at home at that same level of funding as it would take to pay for an assisted care home. And so there is the opportunity for a certain number of slots for someone to receive special assistance and stay at home. Social Services also is responsible for determining eligibility for this program as well. Adult daycare support. Here's a growth opportunity for Person County. Person County's allocation for the adult day program is relatively small and is not enough for a large program here, but it is one that you might want to consider learning more about and advocating for services, because it is a program that allows caregivers to have respite during the day or go to work during the day and allow their loved one to be somewhere cared for during the day while they're out of the home. So I did want to bring it to your attention while the program is really, really small here in Person County. If you think back to the data that I shared with you, this is an opportunity and a growth area for you all to consider moving forward. It is for people over the age of 60. It is for those who need the opportunity to be in a safe place during the day when their caregivers cannot be with them. I think you have one adult daycare home in Person County, perhaps. So there's also the opportunity for more providers in this community as you think through the population and what some of the needs might be in the future. It's like the fourth click usually gets it. So now we're going to talk a little bit about protective services, moving into some of the safety and protection. And these are programs that you probably hear a little bit about in the community sometimes when people need protection from exploitation, abuse, or neglect. When someone has taken advantage of an individual who is older, perhaps their cognitive abilities are failing, and or the individual has a disability and someone has taken advantage of that individual in some way that is not appropriate. Those reports go to the County Department of Social Services. Trained social workers are available to investigate those reports of abuse, neglect, and exploitation. Just like other reports of abuse and neglect and exploitation, you don't have to know that something has occurred. You only have to suspect that it has occurred to report it. There are policies, rules, and general statutes that govern this program. And the director has the responsibility of ensuring that staff are available within the time frames that the statute sets forward to investigate and assess these situations. I will point out that part of the adult protection program is to assess not only what happened, but the need for protection. And unlike some other programs where you have maybe children who aren't able to make decisions for themselves, one of the things that's very different in the adult program is you may have adults who can make decisions for themselves, and sometimes those decisions might not necessarily be in line with what a norm might be for another adult in terms of what we might want in terms of our livelihood and the way that we would want to live. So if a person is able to make decisions about life choices and the circumstance and situation in which they are living, that is sometimes something that is challenging for professionals and community members to sometimes understand. I am really struggling with this clicker, and I do apologize.
We'll just say next slide.
Okay, that'd be great. I will do that. So with regards to adult protective services, if the situation is found to be true with an adult needing protection, then it is the county department's responsibility to plan for those services and to ensure that the essential services are mobilized on behalf of the adult and or the disabled person that needs the services. If there is significant maltreatment that warrants a referral because of criminal activity that has occurred, then the district attorney is notified and various regulatory agencies are notified, and they can become involved in the situation as well. So things like financial exploitation or a significant level of neglect or abuse that rises to the level of a physical altercation that meets a criminal definition, could warrant some charges and a joint investigation with law enforcement. So it's not always just social services being involved, and obviously these are services that are provided without regard to income. So you will have situations where you have people of all socioeconomic backgrounds being served through protective services. Next slide, please. So I wanted to share with you the basic principles of adult protective services, because this gets to a little bit about what I was talking about in terms of an individual having the ability to make some decisions for themselves. First and foremost, in that first block, you'll see that adults have the fundamental right to self-determination. Sometimes in providing adult protective services, you will encounter individuals who say, but I want to stay here. I am fine where I am. This is my choice. And that can be very challenging for a social worker who sees a different path or thinks that there are other opportunities for an individual. And sometimes that's very hard in communities. And as commissioners, you may hear some things sometimes about, I wish there could be something different. But sometimes if a person is able to make their own choices and chooses to do something, then that is their ability to do so, if they have the cognitive ability to do that and make those decisions on their own. Always with the interventions of protective services, we are, as social workers, required to use the least restrictive alternatives. So whatever we can do to be the least intrusive into someone's life, to be the least direct, and to allow them to make as many decisions on their own, to allow family to make as many decisions on their own, that's the requirement. And that oftentimes butts up against some decisions around well-being and other societal norms where individuals had hoped or wished to see more change happen. And so you have to think about these non-voluntary services and involuntary services as being least restrictive, and the government intervention as being as little as is required to make it minimally safe, and so that person can preserve their self-determination and autonomy to the extent that is possible. The other high priority is to allow family and other community supports to be the first line of supports for individuals in the community, and for the professional social workers to fill in the gaps, if you will, to be there only when family and other community supports, friends and neighbors cannot. So another basic principle of adult protective services, if someone else can do it, then it's our job to step back and allow that to happen. Next slide, please. So continuing with the basic principles, next slide, please. If there is, if the harm is that was happening is no longer there, or the situation has been resolved, then there's no other intervention for social services, and social services is to close out and back out of the situation. So the idea is to be involved as little as possible and for the shortest amount of time as possible. And you're always going to see that as a theme when we're talking about involuntary services. You didn't ask us to be there, so we're only going to be there to the extent that the law allows us to be there, and then we have to back out and respect the fact that these were involuntary services. I've already talked about the fact that the focus is on protection rather than investigation of the emphasis. That's where the highest level of emphasis is. And while there's a lot of allowances in terms of the social worker and the agency's ability to collect information around the situation, there's always that confidentiality and the right to privacy, and the reach of the agency can only be extended into areas where it directly pertains to the allegations and directly relates to the protection issues. So it's not a free-for-all in terms of, oh, we've got a report, now we can do all and anything that we need to do relative to this person's life. It has to be directly related to and specific to the issues of protection and the services that are required and needed for that particular service plan for that individual. Next slide, please. So sometimes social services has to step up and be guardian for individuals in the community. And again, this is a last resort situation, but it does happen, and there are a number of times when social services is that person responsible for individuals living in the community who have no family or no one appropriate to be their caregiver or responsible for their placement, their care, and their supports. And when that happens and an individual cannot make decisions for themselves and cannot care for themselves and has no one that is able to do that for them, social services is oftentimes the person that the courts determine, the clerk of court determines is a good choice in the community to provide that for the individual. So when that happens, a social worker is usually case managing for that individual by ensuring that they are safe, protected, and have what they need to successfully either live in the community and or be placed safely in an assisted care home or a nursing home, depending upon their ability to care for themselves. So next slide, please. So the idea of guardianship is it is a legal relationship between the agency, meaning the director and or the assistant director. They're actually the individuals that are appointed by the clerk of court to be the guardian. You are appointed because the person has been determined to be incompetent, unable to take care of their own affairs, and unable to make important decisions for themselves. Typically, the guardian is doing things like making decisions about where they will live, making decisions about their health care, and making decisions about their financial situation, like making sure their rent gets paid, making sure there's food in the house, making sure their utilities are cared for. If they're living in the community, if they're not living in the community, then making sure that everything happens to maintain or sustain their nursing home or assisted care living placement. There's a lot of accountability back to the courts and with any of their financial, like Social Security or SSI or any of their retirement plans or anything. There's a lot of financial accountability back to their resources with regards to any financial management that you might do for a guardian. Next slide, please. Typically, when you become guardian, you are guardian until the court relieves you of that responsibility. Most of the time when you become guardian, you remain guardian until either the ward's competency is restored, and that does happen sometimes, that you resign from being guardian. That rarely happens as a social services agency unless you locate a relative or some other person that is capable and able to be that guardian, or the clerk of court removes you from being guardian, or the individual passes and obviously no longer needs a guardian. Next slide, please. So moving from protection to some of the community-based services, and this is where we really like to be, because this is where we're helping people to stay at home, stay in the community, be active in the community, and be with their family and live out their best days, usually where they want and desire to be. And we can do that in a variety of different ways by providing in-home services, and you will hear a variety of different programs and services called in the community. So I've highlighted just a few of these. There are others that people may call by name, but these are some of the larger programs that social services is actively providing and or contracting with others to provide in the community. But in-home aid services are very well received in communities, and something that most communities don't have enough of, but they surely enable caregivers to be able to maintain their loved ones at home for longer periods of time, because it allows individuals to have people to come into, trained professionals to come into the home and assist them with their daily activities, such as bathing and preparing meals and doing some home management kinds of activities, things that allow them to stay safely in their home and for their home to be feasible for them to continue to reside there and stay there safely, and it be a healthy place for them to stay. So we call these activities daily living activities, and if an individual needs help with these, then an aide can come into the home for several hours, several days a week, and provide these services. Next slide, please. A similar program to in-home aid is CAP services, and that's community-based alternative services. And these are often funded with Medicaid funds and or authorized through the Social Security Act. And again, allow individuals to stay at home, receive services in their home in order to avoid out-of-home placement. Just wanted to highlight, because you will hear people talk about trying to get CAP services for an individual so that they can stay home. These services are provided not only to individuals who are older, but individuals who might have a disability and with these services could stay home and prevent some level of institutional care. Next slide, please. So what do CAP services pay for? A great variety of services. You can get adult day health, and we talked about the need for those services. You can get meal preparation. They can help to do modifications in the home so that you can stay home. They can help with coordinating caregivers to come in and out of the home. Personal assistance, that's things like help you with bathing and toileting and those kinds of things. They can do training and education, and that's to help caregivers learn how to care for your special needs so that they can do some of the care themselves. But just a good variety of things that allow an individual to stay home and to be cared for. Some of the things that we don't necessarily think about every day, down in this bottom corner, that people don't necessarily come to mind, are things like helping with garbage disposal and pest eradication. You know, if someone is unable to do some things for a period of time and things deteriorate and you find out about it, sometimes to get situations back to where they need to be, you know, there's a lot that has to happen when you're starting from a place of something that's been neglected for a long period of time. And so just the fact that you have programs and services where you can go in and do things like pest eradication and clean up from garbage and things like that, to get things back to where they need to be so they're safe and healthy environments for individuals is a really advantageous thing. Next slide, please. So one of the programs that social services also offers that not every agency offers is to be a representative payee for individuals who are unable to manage their own finances and do it well so that their basic necessities are cared for. I think this is an excellent way of ensuring that people prioritize how to spend their money and make sure that things like rent and utilities are taken care of first, and that individuals who just need some support in budgeting and making sure that their affairs are taken care of so that they're not evicted, or that they can manage their money throughout the month and have enough there to buy groceries every week and not run short. Social workers are able to work with individuals who are on fixed incomes where the income is so limited that if you don't manage it very, very, very carefully, you could run into trouble. So we have social workers at Person County Social Services who are doing individual and family adjustment services and health support services, and are helping people through payee services to make sure that they are doing some really good case management. So very nice to see them doing some preventive services there with older adults and individuals with disabilities. So it's exciting to see that. Next slide, please. So how are these services provided in Person County? Next slide. So there are some caseload standards for these services, and some there are not caseload standards. So the state and federal government in the areas of protection and safety will give you caseload standards. In some of the other areas, your management and supervisory teams are really looking at workload in terms of the size and demographics of the county. How far do we have to travel for these home visits, and what's the manageable workload for individuals. So it really varies from program to service, and so you can hear that certain social workers have really smaller caseloads because they're doing some real intense social work services around safety and protection, and you will hear where some have much, much larger caseloads because they're really doing more financial management activities and making sure that others are doing a lot of the direct service in the home, like in-home aid services and those kinds of things. Next slide, please. So who are the adult services staff? You've got a combination of eligibility workers who are determining benefits, and we talked about the eligibility criteria in the last presentation, so I didn't repeat it here in this presentation for you. But when we talk about case management services, a lot of that work and most of that work is performed by social workers. Next slide, please. And who are the social workers? Their knowledge and skills is rooted in behavioral health and psychosocial problem solving, and they have had training in social work principles, techniques, and practices. They know how to do complex casework and group work. They are skilled at doing motivational interviewing and doing assessing psychosocial problems and doing environmental scans and really doing a lot of field work. So it's professional, good, grassroots social work at its best. Next slide, please. So to be a social worker, you have experience in education that is required. It starts with a master's degree in social work from an appropriately accredited institution. If you don't have that master's degree in social work, there's a bachelor's degree in social work and 1 year of experience, and this is pretty much to be a social worker 2, social worker 3 level, which is what you're going to need to work in the higher levels of social work around the adult services programs. Or you can have a master's degree in a human services related field. If your field is related, then you're going to need more experience if you move outside of that social work degreed area. So there are equivalencies beyond just having the social work degree. And this is really helpful in rural communities especially, but I will tell you it's helpful all across the state because there just aren't enough practicing social workers to fill all the social work jobs that are available, whether you're in some of our larger, more metropolitan counties or in rural counties, but it's especially helpful in rural counties to know that you can have equivalencies in human services degrees and not, have to hire in the social work preferred degree always. Next slide, please. So there's a lot of accountability in social in social work and in the adult services programs. A couple of meetings ago, we presented to you the memorandum of agreement. Mr. Hart was up here with us as well, and I think we talked about the oversight that the Department of Health and Human Services has for most of the programs that are administered through social services. And so when we went over that memorandum of agreement with you, there were several outcome measures that are related to the programs that we just went over today that you need to be aware of. 2 of the outcome measures in that memorandum of agreement are related to adult protection. Did you do it on time, and was the quality of the work, the thoroughness of the work there that needed to be there? And 2 of the measures are around special assistance, and are you determining eligibility for that program accurately? Is one of them. There are a lot of monitorings that happen in the world of adult services because there are a lot of various funding streams that are cobbled together to make all those services that we just talked about happen in your community. And so there are 14 different monitoring tools that the Aging and Adult Services Division will come into social services and monitor your various programs against. And so I have linked those to you for you in the presentation so you can go out there and look and see what kinds of things they're looking for when they come into your agency and do those reviews. But they're looking for timeliness, accuracy, thoroughness. They're looking for customer service, making sure that people are satisfied with what they got, just a whole variety of different things. But that second link is, everything in that second link is all about the services that we talked about. The first link, about 50% of the adult services monitorings there are directly related to social services. Next slide, please. And if you want to learn more about the adult services programs, here are some really good websites for you to go and learn more. At the first link there, you will see a lot more detail about the programs that I talked with you about today. At the second link there, you'll find your area aging programs, and you'll find your area aging plan. You'll find at the third link, you'll find your regional council, you'll find your area aging agency and information about your relationship with them. You'll find more about some of the Medicaid funded services at the Division of Health Benefits. At the Division of Health Services Regulations, you'll find information about your assisted care and nursing homes and other agencies in your community that are regulated and licensed by the state of North Carolina that are caring for individuals in Person County who have disabilities and or are older. And some of your social workers actually monitor some of those facilities here. And so to make sure that they're providing high quality care to the individuals that are residing there. And at the UNC School of Government, there is a really good, and I did not know there was as much information on this website as there is, because they have actually added some recently. There's more information about what it means to be a guardian for an individual with disabilities and or an older adult, as well as more information around protective services. So if you want to learn more, these are very valuable resources for you. And that concludes the presentation on adult services.
Wow. Any questions? Go ahead, sir.
Chairman Powell, I did have one. You mentioned case management for the elderly and the disabled that are reluctant to move away from home.
Mhm.
Now, is that like a every other day check-in, or somebody check on them daily, or
It depends, and that's why it's social work, right?
probably home
Mm-hmm.
for family and a combination of?
That's
yes.
exactly right.
Okay.
You're looking at how often do I need to be here? Who else is coming in and out of the home? Are there neighbors? Are there places that this individual is going? You know, are they getting home delivered meals? If they're getting home delivered meals on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I know somebody's laying eyes on them. You know, is somebody else coming in and out of the home? You're doing all those wonderful things to do those assessments so that I know, okay, I've got 3 days here that nobody's coming over, so I'm going to check and see, are there relatives that can come over? Are there neighbors that can check on them? You know, are there things that we can do that make things safe for this individual? And you know, there's just wonderful kinds of things. And if not, then as a last resort, it might mean I'm going out there every Thursday morning because we just couldn't figure out any other way because there's nobody else that's going. But as a government agency, you're trying to figure out what can we do to get the community, to get family involved, to get neighbors involved. And I will say social workers do a really good job at this. And sometimes it's things like, you know, having pharmacies deliver their prescriptions and knowing that, or having their groceries delivered, or, you know, things like that that put people in and out of the home, so you know that if somebody doesn't answer the door, somebody's getting called. Really good ways to make sure people are safe and cared for and checked on.
Pretty much what I thought.
Make
Thank you.
sense?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
It's a really good.
And I have a question, it's probably for us as a county, is, do we have guardianship? We have participants that we consider, we are the guardians in Person County? We do?
Yes, sir.
Roughly how many? Any idea?
Approximately 55, sir.
Wow, okay. And I see that out the numbers you gave us at the very beginning for 2042, I see the adult services and everything involved with that being more demand
That's right.
as we go forward.
Yes, sir.
Based on our aging population. So anyway, it's a very important service. Thank you.
What was that number again on Guardians?
55,
55.
approximately, yes, sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate your efforts to get this board up to speed on the enormous responsibility that this board has assumed in taking over management of social services, and it's huge. And we see how many needy people there are in Person County, and typically we hear the most about children, and they are a priority, no doubt about it. But then we've heard the other end of that spectrum, and that's the aging population. And you look at the numbers. This is, you know, numbers tell you something, whether we like it or not. So we're headed in that direction. That population is growing and would naturally deserve the right amount of accountability and supervision as we go forward. But thank you for doing that. Just a thought and a question. How is there involvement or crosswalk between LMEs and MCOs with social services that we need to be aware of, like VIA and some of the other providers? Is that totally separate?
So with regards to serving
Yes,
individuals,
yes, yes.
very much involved, very
Okay.
much involved, especially on the guardianship side and on the adult protection side, as well as the community living side. I mean, it's on that services side, there's a lot of engagement and a lot of involvement.
That sector seems to have difficulty maintaining providers. Do you encounter any of that problem? I don't know about locally. Are we short on providers?
In some programs, in some areas we are short, but in others we're good. So it kind of all depends where we're talking.
Yes, okay, specific
Right.
cases.
Right, more likely for children, it's a little bit more rough right now. Maybe more so.
Yeah, okay, all right. Well, again, we appreciate what you're doing.
Thank
and,
you.
Thanks for coming.
Thank you.
Item number 6 on our agenda is designation of voting delegate to the NC Association of County Commissioners for the 2024 Legislative Goals Conference. Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir. Good morning, Chairman and Commissioners. Every 2 years, the NC Association of County Commissioners members engage in a process to determine the legislative goals it should seek in the best interest of the counties. The NCACC goal-setting process begins in August of each even-numbered year and consists of 5 stages, beginning with the solicitation of proposals from counties and ending with the adoption of the legislative agenda at the Legislative Goals Conference. This Board of Commissioners at their August 5th, 2024 board meeting provided 9 proposals for legislative action. The list was provided to the NCACC. All counties and all county officials are invited and encouraged to participate in this conference, in this process. Every county in attendance has 1 vote. The voting delegate can be any county official, including non-elected officials, and a county may choose an alternate if they desire to do so. Before each legislative biennium, NCACC convenes a conference for counties from around the state to come together to participate in voting sessions to finalize the goals, which guide their advocacy efforts. The conference is the final step in a comprehensive process which gives each county an opportunity to shape NCACC's legislative agenda. The conference is being held this November 14th through the 15th, at the Raleigh Marriott Crabtree Valley. It is my request that you respectfully designate a voting delegate from this board or choose a member of the public to represent Person County at this conference this year.
Thank you, ma'am. So it's not isolated to this board?
That is
you
correct.
made very clear, so you could have someone otherwise. So, do we have a motion to designate, as you said there, board member, as a voting delegate to the NCACC conference?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
I was, last week, 2 weeks ago, I was put in the position of director for District 8 of this county and surrounding counties for the NCACC. I would be, if there's someone else that would like to be there and go to this and represent us, that would be great. If not, I would be more than happy to take that position.
Okay, is that self-nomination?
Sounds like to me.
Yes.
Okay, any further nominations? Hearing none, all in favor of Commissioner Sims filling that position? Any other discussion before we? Okay, hearing none, then any, no other discussion, then do we have a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Any other discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, none, motion carried.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Okay, I guess that concludes our business, so to speak, and move along to other things. Chairman's report, as mentioned previously, we did have the Rural Center listening tour last week that some of us attended, which was very good. They're going about the state of North Carolina, gathering information regarding issues, concerns, needs, etc., related to especially rural areas. And they had how many stops statewide? 13, 14? Something.
Sounds about right.
Numerous, and they'll be compiling information that they gathered. I think it was very good. At the same time, we find the commonality between various counties that we have represented there that share the same needs. And so with sharing the same needs, I hope there'll be some focus on funding and supporting those needs, especially in the legislature. So that was, it was good, very good conference, I thought. And we did have several locals represented there, manager was there, and some from tourism and other areas throughout the county. And thanks for being there and doing that. Could I back up just a minute? Your slides that you presented, are they available to the public? Could we have those?
Yes, I'll
Okay.
send those to you in a follow-up email, and then we'll also include them in the minutes when those are produced for the meeting. But I will send those to you so you'll have access to the links.
Yeah, okay, and going forward, I mean, it should be available to the whomever the new board will be come December. So it'll be available. In a way, I kind of hate to bring this up and say this, but during public comment recently, we've had a couple of comments there about commissioners meeting, that business was conducted behind closed doors, and the quote was made about 4 individuals. Now, those 4 individuals referenced were not 4 board members, but 4 people who were involved in the negotiations related to the mega site. And that is a land acquisition process, and that was it. And it has been going on quite a bit, but I assure the tax-paying good people of Person County that there's nothing here reflective of a dictatorship, period. 4 people were initially involved in the NDA, and that is an agreement that we had with the client related to their desire to purchase property in Person County, and it's very complex, very complicated. That NDA, non-disclosure, is what that's all about, that we were pretty much saying that we're not going to talk about these negotiations, and I can only speak for myself, but I support the others there that haven't talked about it publicly, and I maintain that. Additional people, as required in that negotiating process, have been added to the list of people that were involved, and that may be an additional attorney, might be an additional staff member, whomever it may be. But again, that process for this economic development venture has been the most complicated I've ever been involved in, and so it's not a dictatorship. We're just following the guidelines that the client wants, and we respect that. So I don't know where that notion comes from, but there has been no actual business or vote taken by those on the NDA. There's no votes there. When appropriate, parts of that project has been brought to this full board for decisions as needed and required. But beyond that, I assure the public, there has been no behind-the-scenes negotiations with that. And I've been there, done that, sat in on these sessions all along. And but again, there have been nothing secretive. It's only going through the process that the client has mandated and dictated to the EDC and county manager and others that may be involved. And I just wanted to say that it goes back to personal integrity and integrity of the people involved in this process, and I stand by and support the group, and we're making progress in that, and we're doing the right thing for the people of Person County. And other than the routine assignments that I have as a commissioner of meetings, that's just routine. We've done those things, and progress has been made. Manager Kathy?
I'd just like to remind everyone that our Board of Elections is holding early voting in this building in the auditorium every day between now and November 2nd. So on weekdays, the hours are 8 a.m. to 7:30 p.m. and hours vary on the weekends, but they are posted on the county website under our elections department. So I encourage everyone to get out and vote.
Commissioner Sims?
Thank you. As mentioned earlier, I attended the executive committee of the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And you mentioned the legislative goals. Some of one or two of them were from Person County that made the list. We have 50 proposed goals that we approved for consideration that weekend we were there. And that'll probably be whittled down to eventually 5 actually making it to the legislative for proposal. But just the different brackets or just the different top agricultural guiding principles and proposed goals, environmental guiding principles and proposed goals, general government guiding principles and proposed goals, health and human services guiding principles and proposed goals, justice and public safety guiding principles and proposed goals, public education guiding principles and proposed goals, tax and finance guiding principles and proposed goals, proposed federal legislative goals. Those were the different brackets or topics that we had that we discussed. As I said, there's 50 out of all those different topics. We have 50. One of the things that was done is that the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners voted to give $500,000 to the Western support for those who have suffered with the flooding and what they went through. And then we also approved $500,000 to go to tech support along with that. So that's where I was at for the 11th and 12th. And it was very informative, and look forward to seeing what happens as we propose those goals to the legislature. That's it.
Commissioner Harmon?
No report.
Mr. Puryear?
No report.
Commissioner Thomas?
No report.
All right, good. This time then we need a motion to go into closed sessions.
So moved.
All right, closed session number 1 for the purpose to discuss personnel, followed by closed session number 2 for attorney-client privilege to discuss matters related to the lawsuit Mainstream Earthworks versus Person County with Economic Development back in open session at this point, and we have no further business to conduct, so we need a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Have a motion to adjourn on the floor. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? None. Motion carries. So we are adjourned.